I'm going to actually turn off the camera in the conference because you don't need to see me twice because I'm sharing that screen. Just getting set up here. All right. In a minute, I'm going to collapse this assignment. This is a enrichment activity that's assigned for Tuesday. So as it says, optional here. And the instructions are Google Doc that will walk you through the process of how to actually customize the sound. Now, one big heads up is the actual area that makes the sound happen is it's a rather large blueprint, and so finding your way around the blueprint might be the hardest thing about this. So I'll walk through that with you in a minute, and please stop me if you have questions. You've got public, private chat. Open your mics if you so desire to. And I see at least one student's already in here looking at it. That's cool. So it does have to be a first-person game, and most of the blueprint changes we've been making have been in the third person. So this is going to be a first person because that's the one that gives you a gun. Now, there's a lot you can do with sounds because they do a lot. You can have surround sound. Here's the basic takeaway. I want you to understand that this is from the Unreal documentation. They suggest a sample rate of 44.1 kilohertz. Don't ask me to explain this to you because I'm not a sound engineer. But that's what they say I'm going to use, so that's what I'm going to use. And I followed that flow in my use of our sound recording in lab, and it worked. So I would suggest that you do the same thing. All right? All right. So the first thing you got to do is you got to come up with a sound file. Now, I wanted you to record your own, but in order to add the sound file to your content browser, you can also grab a pre-existing sound. And I've got a bunch of them that are out there for you. Some of them are redonkulous. Yes, you heard me right, redonkulous. That's a word that I really enjoy when it applies. So what I'm going to do is in public chat, I'm going to actually type out the path. But if you're logged on in the lab, I'll open this folder for you as well. It's a game programming folder here. And so I'm going to go into, a browser. And from here, I'm going to go back a couple levels just to show you where I'm at. So on the game programming drive, you're going to look under a folder called ART, A-R-T. Rhymes with smart, yeah. Go into the art folder, and there's a subfolder called sound. All right, so when you're in the folder called sound, there is a ton of sounds. Some of them are broken down. For example, back in 2013, there was a caveman-based game that was done by students. Their sound files are there. Actually, Dark Harry, I think, had both these characters. So I've had students record sounds for a long time. Yes, there are screams, special effects, soothing sounds, etc. There's a weapon folder, so you could look in there if you want to. A lot of that sword and board type stuff. What I had grabbed for you are these actual Unreal packed binary files. My thinking was, oh, we'll just drag these into the Unreal level and we'll be able to work with them that way. But it's not working as well as I would have thought. So I'm going to go back to the process that I used to teach, which is grabbing a sound file and bringing that in. Here's what we're going to do. To get this done, to add the sound file, I'm going to open up an Unreal level, which I've got handy here. First person, the main shooter. You guys remember this? I'm just going to do a play here. Alt-P for play. And there's the default sound that's playing. So I can, run around my maze. I don't think you're hearing the sound of the shooting. Do you guys hear the sound of the shooting when I click? Because I don't know if you can or can't. Nope. All right. So it's the traditional bang. I'm sorry about that. Still got to figure out my sound files. Here's the thing, though. Here's another file. Where I'm putting this is in a folder, which I'm going to rename because I should have done capital FL for first and last stuff. I think it's a great idea if you are going to use stuff from, how come it didn't take caps there? If you're going to put things in your projects, FL stuff 2, 1, there we go. Trying to make it so it stands out a little bit more. Oh, here's another way to make it stand out. So what I'm in here is the content browser. I've got my folder showing. I've got something that's supposed to be first and last initial. I'm going to use set color to a nice bright yellow, just because I'm going to grab yellow. So now that stands out like it's got a highlighter on it. And if I'm on a different folder, I'll go, oh yeah, let's put it in this folder. This is where I put my maze. and I already brought in one sound. When you find a sound file, and unfortunately, now I'm still in that area here called Art Sound. Unfortunately, we can't grab these UPK ones because when I tried, let's see, where would a gun would have been like the sniper. If I try to drag in the sniper one, it's going to work now. Gave me the plus sign like it was going to. Weapon sniper, drag and drop. It's not working for me, so I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to grab something else here, like, and I'm looking for a small, short sound. I don't want a giant one, so here's a pro tip. If you sort these by size and then look at the smaller ones, those are going to be the ones that are going to be better for shooting. Because the size, generally speaking, relates to the length of time. And you don't want to have a really long shooting sound if you're going to have rapid fire. So let's grab Mission Trophy, one kilobyte, and just drag that in and just click on play. You know what? That's too short. I'm going to go ahead and force the delete on that one. Let's grab one that's about 5 kilobytes. I think that's what I did before. Bounce. Let's try Bounce 3. There we go. Let's play that. Yep. That's a nice quiet sound. It almost sounds like a basketball being dribbled. So you can play these outside of Unreal before you bring them in. Find one that you're happy with. You can use a Scream. You can use Magic, whatever you want. I'm just going to grab a Magic one just to see what that's like. I like Magic there. Magic 9 is going to be my sound of choice. All right, that's the main thing, is get something from a wave sound file, bring it in. You'll notice it's purple bottom. That's your clue. Any one of them. I'll give you guys a couple of minutes to find one and bring it into your content browser. Get your sound set up first. And then when you're ready for the next step, give me a thumbs up. I'm going to pause the video while you guys get set up. Again, and I'll resume the recording for this session here so that everybody's on board with it. All right, let's jump back into it. So I've got a sound here where I left off, and I'm in my Maze Shooter game. And what I want to have people understand is now that I've dragged in this sound, I happen to pick the Magic 9 one, and I don't know that my sound's going to play. The next thing I want to do is I want to actually find the blueprint that I want to change. Now, the instructions guide you to it, but I find it's been a little bit hidden for people. Now, remember, we're in a first-person game. And in a first-person game, we're looking in the folder called First Person BP. Right there. So I'm going to go into that folder, and when I open up that folder, I'll see another folder called Blueprints right above there. And if I go into Blueprints, you'll see I got a number of things. By the way, that's how we changed what we shoot. That was fun, right? Not everyone's shooting the yellow ball anymore. It's your own choice what you're picking. So let's take a look here in this first-person character. And I happen to be exactly zoomed in on where I want to be. And that's not helpful to you because it's like, oh, when I opened it, it's not there. So let me show you where that's at. I'm going to scroll back. And there's a comment over here. If you zoom in on this portion of it, it says spawn projectile. Now, spawn projectile is perhaps, oops, I didn't mean to move that node. I'm going to do an undo, which is Control Z. There we go. So I just wanted to point out to you that this is the overall, I mean, if I scroll back, this can get rather complicated. We talked yesterday about a way to group like multiple pieces into one thing. You could use a macro to do this. So let's dig into spawn projectile a little bit. Either way, either one of these events can trigger the whole series that's going on. Now we're going to follow the execution path. The execution path is this white line here. So what happens is when one of these two events occurs, the execution comes into something that says montage play. The target is an animation instance. Let's not worry about what that does right now. We're going to pass along. It's going to basically, have the hands show the effect of shooting. Over here it says spawn projectile. And over at this point right here, it says, Oh, I wish I would remember to not wiggle my camera around. It's like a magic. It's like a magic thing that makes everything else go away and leaves me on a blank screen. Oh, yeah, I don't want to keep the timing on that PowerPoint, whatever was going on there. Let me jump back in. I apologize for the rough start there. That's pretty hilarious. All right, I'm pretty much back where I was. Let me get back into my first person character here. This is where that sound is played. Now, I, I'm either lazy or smart. I don't know which, but where it says sound, you could click on this will find it in the browser for you. The magnifying glass is helpful to find it. But if we have it highlighted in our content browser, we can just say use this one instead. All right, so let's take a look at that. I'm going to minimize the window here so I can actually highlight in my content folder. Remember earlier I set up this thing called first and last stuff. So the student name stuff is here. And with it highlighted, I'm going to go to Magic 9, which is the sound that I decided would be fun to play with. And since that is now highlighted in my content browser, indicated by the yellow box around the object, I can then return to this little, what's the word, guys? What's this box called? It's a blueprint node. And so the parameter that's being fed in here, I'm going to click on use the asset that's already selected in the browser. It's now changed to Magic 9, and when you make a change to a blueprint, you can't just go and play the game. You got to do that compile. Now, from my own experience in programming, before I compile, which in some environments can be risky, shouldn't be here, I like to do a save. So my changes are applied, and then do a compile. As I do a compile, you'll notice I get a little bit of feedback. I see a green checkbox. Now, as you go to compile a blueprint, if you get a red X, you'll have to watch and see what it's complaining about and dig into it, because sometimes we make mistakes. All right, I can minimize this. And instead of just doing a play, I'd like you to kind of experiment with this a little bit. I'd like you to do what's called simulate. Let's see if I can manage this right. Get rid of a couple of extra windows are open here. And where'd my simulate window button go? There it is. See where it says play and it says simulate next to it? I want to keep track of that simulate button, which is over here. Simulation. Boom. So now when I play this, it says simulating, and when I'm in the game and I shoot, I'm not seeing the red bar, but I'm hearing the sound. It's good noise, good sound. It's working for me. All right, simulate's not working for me. So now I'm going to pause this again. I'm going to help people that are in the lab answer questions and see how they're doing at like locating the event that says play firing sound. And then we'll come back here in a minute. And for those of you who are sticking with me, I'm going to show you how to have it set up so that it plays one of 3 different sounds in order, almost like a traffic light, right? You know, yellow, red, green kind of thing. Or, yeah, yellow, red, green. Okay, I'll be back in a minute. Let's pause this again. Oh, where's my pause button? All right, guys, how are we doing out in lab? Let me start to record this again. All right, I'm just going to kind of introduce the idea first before I actually do it. At this point, what we're doing is we're playing a sound, always the same sound. Now, I was going to draw a picture, but you know what? I don't think I really do need to draw a picture. This node is an action that can be done when the execution pin goes into it. I'd like to have a total of 3 different versions of it. And so I'm going to highlight this. I'm going to right-click, and I'm just going to say duplicate. I got a second one. And I similarly want to have it happen at the point of the location. So while I'm here, I'm going to wire that in, and I'm going to do the same thing a 3rd time. Now, currently, these are all doing the same thing. It's going to play a firing sound 3 different times if I leave this thing the way it is. Actually, these aren't even wired in yet. They're just orphaned here. So that's the first part. I've actually made it so that there are 3 different things all using the same location, but playing at this point the same sound. Now I could connect the execution pin out from here into there, but that's not what I want to do. What I'm going to do, sliding this over to make space for it, is I'm going to add a node right here. You guys with me? Give me a word if you need me to pause. Now to add a node here, I can just right click and bring up a drop down list. Right now it's set to context sensitive. I'm not sure that's going to help me, but I'm just going to type in sequence, S-E-Q for sequence, U-E-N-C-E. I'm going to deselect context sensitive, switch on sequence, switch on, switch on sequence eval. That's not the one I want. I can just delete it. Sequence node. I'm having a little bit of a brain fart here. Let's take a look in Blueprints Lecture 2. Scroll down to our flow. It's what I just covered yesterday, and why I can't think of the word, I don't know. You do multiple things. One of multiple things in order. Logical. If this is true, if that's true. There's a set. Events and functions. Always the same thing, always the same thing. No, there's a sample in here. Program flow, one thing, for loop, we don't need that. Sequence, it's just called sequence. This is the node we want. It's just a sequence node. You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag out from the execution pin on the left and look for the word sequence. That way and I'll page down once you get a better view of it. What's going to happen is I can do the first thing and then the second thing and then the third thing. So the way this works is these two happen in order. The first time it'll do these two things, the next time it'll do this one, and then it goes back again to the top again. So we can have set of 3 different sounds, so it's going to play one of 3 different sounds in order, kind of like a stop sign. So in order to bring up the sequence, I'm going to click on this little execution pin, pull out, and when I let go, since I'm on an execution path, and I type in S-E-Q-U-E-N-C-E, there's the sequence I'm looking for. Now on the sequence where it says 0, I'm going to do this one to play this sound. Under 1, I'm going to drag this over to this pin to do the next sound. And I'm going to add a pin. Sorry, I should move my head over here so you can kind of see where I'm working. So what I did is I brought in, dragged off of this, and I did the first one, then one. The next one I'm going to click on Add Pin, an additional time. And from this pin, I'm going to go to the third variety of sound. I just clicked on the box rather than the pin. There we go. You can zoom in more if it helps you. I probably should have because my eyes aren't as good as they used to be. All right, so 2 things going on here. I've got all these white lines, which I'd like to straighten out the ones where I can. And I've also got this yellow line that's bringing in data. Now, currently, they're all playing the same sound, but I'd like to change them. So we're going to kind of repeat what I just did. So I'm going to minimize the window, not close it, but minimize it. Go back to where I've got my sounds, and I'd like to bring in 3 related sounds that I can use. Okay? To do that, I'm going to go back to the folder on the game programming drive where we keep all these sounds. Now, I don't want to get way ahead of you, so I'm going to pause again and make sure that the group's with me. And if you need to pause me, pause me. Are you guys with me on this? All right, I guess I'm spoiled. I've got some brilliant students out there that are already caught up with me. Nobody needs additional help. I'm going to go back into sound now. I found 3 related sounds. Unfortunately, the way that the sound system is right now, I'm not going to be able to play these for you, but I'm going to grab chime, high, low, and medium, and it really doesn't matter what order they're in. You can use control or select to grab more than one of them. Click and drag and bring them in, and I've got chime high, low, and medium. So now that I've got 3 different values, high, low, and medium, I'll start with the high. I'll get it highlighted, and I will go into, I don't know if you can tell what I got going on here, because sometimes I've got more than one window open. I'm back over in the section where I've got my sequence to play the firing sound. Instead of doing magic, I'm going to change that to chime high, which is the one that's selected by using the arrow there. And I'm just going to go left to right. The next one down, I'm going to go to sound. First, I got to make sure I got it highlighted. Use the assignment arrow, I like to call it. All right, high, low, medium. And again, use this. So now, before I can test this, I need to do what, students? If I made a change, notice in the upper left-hand corner, this no longer has a green checkbox. it's telling me that there are, exactly, thank you, got an appropriate response. So compiling, which is what we did with our own code, it still happens within the engine. But we're not having to remember all of the syntax and type out all of the codes. We have a lot of assistance. We let the engine do the heavy lifting. I'm going to compile it and hope for, yay, I got the checkbox. I'm good to go. Forgot to do a save. That's saving my assets, committing them as well. And I'm going to minimize this. And now, you'll have to take my word for it, whether it works or not. I'm going to play this level. And guess what? I'm getting the same sound every time. It's not working for me. I need to take a look at this closer. I got to debug this. Mine's not working. What did I do wrong? Part of it could be the demo gremlin. And I could be selfish and pause myself right now. So chime high, low, medium. Let's make sure they all sound different here. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, they sound like really cheap piano keys, like on a toy piano. But I thought a group of them might be sound, and they're not so loud they hurt my ears, which some of these, to be candid, do. All right, back in my blueprint, which I closed, so good memory, good reminder for everybody else. To get to your blueprints, you want to look for the first person blueprints, first person BP, go into blueprints folder, grab the first person character, and it happens to be where I left off, which is great. And I got to take a little closer at what I'm doing with my sequence here. I do see 3 different. Chime high, low, and medium. I expected this to perform differently. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to try a flip-flop, which is another logic gate, which just basically alternates between 2, just to make sure I'm not, because it didn't work, I'm going to try something different. So here's the sequence node. I'm going to break the link to it. I don't think I've talked about this before. I'm going to right-click up here, and I'm going to say break links. Break all input links. Break all input. Break all. Nope, that's not what I wanted to do. Control Z on that. I didn't want to break the input nodes. I'm just going to click on this and hit delete on that path. No, just drag out from it. And flip-flop, F-L-I-P, flip-flop. There it is, flip-flop. So flip-flop goes back and forth between true and false, A and B. I don't want this sequence pin here. I'm going to delete it for now. Now I orphaned everything that was connected to it. So first time I'm going to go with high, and the next time I'm going to go with low. It'll give me a little bit more dramatic. This one's just orphaned down here. I'm going to try to compile it. It might complain. Nope, it's okay with the fact that something's just sitting over there. And I'm going to try the flip-flop version and see if that works better for me. That one definitely works. The flip-flop's working for me. Okay, Aswin, let's switch to the flip-flop version. I think the sequence node was not what I wanted to do. I think what I wanted was more like a flip-flop. I figured out a goofy way to do a third sound. And that's to add a flip-flop under a flip-flop. 2 flip-flops, we got a whole pair. So what I can do is I can, off this path here, I could do so that it would say A the first time and then B or C the next time. This is just to show you use of another node in a couple of applications here. So from this flip-flop, I'm gonna redirect B here so that B goes between A or B down here. Now this is not exactly going to go 1, 2, 3. It's going to go 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 2, 1, 3. So not that I'm going for musical experience here, but if I compile this and try it again, I should end up with 1 and then 1, and then it'll alternate between them. This ends up being radically weird. Now I customized this part. So rather than extend the comment that's there, I'd like to show you how to do a comment. I'm going to click and drag over this area that I just set up some custom things. I'm going to touch C on the keyboard, and I got a comment block. And this is playing around with sound. All right. That's what we got going on. And because I copied the original node, it has a comment on the nodes as well that says play firing sound. But I'm doing this flip-flop, which I'll save. Let me experiment with this now. That works. That's a really weird combination. All right, I'm going to pause my video. Hopefully that is working for people. As I do so, I'm going to come back in just to maximize the view on the blueprint here, just so that people can have like a freeze frame on this. It's a maximized view of what I did. And this is not saying this is the right way to do it. I'm saying it's one of the ways to do it. Just trying to line these up so that they maybe make a little more sense. That's a little more neat. Myself out of the way. I don't need these details. Whoa, whoa. Here we go.